Good evening. I will go ahead and open the City of Portage Planning Commission meeting for Monday, November 6th. If you would stand and say the pledge. Mr. Monroe, could you call roll?
Tom Sherry. Here. Gina Geishurst. Excuse me. Sam LeBoy.
Here.
John Harrison.
Here.
Charles Thompson.
Here.
Melissa Weidenbach.
Here.
Victor Mendoza. Denise Little.
Here.
Paul Soselski.
If everybody has had an opportunity to look at the minutes, if there are no additions or corrections, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Any reports from staff?
No, not at this time.
Could you call our first order of old business?
Yes, P 0222 MPGA LLC, care of Kevin Koros, McMahon Associates, Inc., 4501 Airport Drive, Unit 101, Valparaiso, Indiana, seeking primary plat approval for Northwood Trail subdivision, 34.8 acres at the 6500 block of Old Porter Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If you all could state your name.
Hi, Kevin Koros, McMahon Associates, 952 South State Road 2, Valparaiso, Indiana.
Bill Herndon, 570 Vale Park Road, Valparaiso, Indiana, 468-5, 977-10155.
Jason Gilliana with MPGA LLC.
Go ahead and do your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. Obviously, we just introduced ourselves. This is case P-02-22, Northwood Trail, primary plat. Just kind of a little history here. We were before you for a public hearing on July 10th this past summer. I heard public comment at that time, reconvened then on August 7th, received additional commentary from the board, and this matter was continued until this evening with direction to provide, work with staff and provide some additional information. The property consists of 34.8 acres approximately, divided in the center generally by Old Porter Road. 82 lots, 81 single family, 1 commercial lot that would be located on Melton Road. What we're proposing for you tonight is the primary plat would likely be constructed in 3 phases. And importantly, what I'd like to point out to you tonight is that we're not seeking any variances to your ordinance. This plat, as it's designed, meets the terms of your ordinance, and we're not seeking any waivers or variance to those standards. So when we left, I would say there were 2, principal items, and one was relative to the trees on the site, and the second was Old Porter roadway and what we were going to do with that and how that was going to be constructed principally. So when we left the meeting this summer, we had a meeting, at least one with staff, perhaps 2, and decided, what are we going to do? How do we address this discussion about the trees? So what we did is we engaged a third-party firm to do a review of our property. Okay. Sure. So we elected to engage Soil Solutions Incorporated, located in Valparaiso, one of the top firms here in Northwest Indiana. In fact, the city of Portage uses Soil Solutions from time to time on their own projects. And when they were engaged, they asked what was their task, if you will, and we advised them, provided them a copy of your ordinance, and indicated that we're required to review the property in accordance with the terms of the ordinance, and that's what we asked him to do. Subsequent to that request, they issued a report which we've provided to staff, and I don't know how many of those were circulated, but what was discovered is that while there are a number of trees on the site, not many are really good native trees on the property. Obviously, there are trees on the site, but what Mr. McQuestion determined in his professional opinion is that after reviewing all of the site, that there really were only 34 trees, in his opinion, that were trees that were really worth taking a look at to save. And he determined that those trees, and they're all identified in the report, out of these 34, they were all of the species red oak, and they were all measured to be 1.5 feet or greater diameter at breast height. And I asked him how he determined that would be an appropriate tree to be looked at and preserved, and he said if that was a property that he was going to develop, that's what he would do. So after completing his report and compiling that list of 34 trees that he determined were of good nature, there were 34. We asked for positioning on the site for that, and that information was provided to us and transferred onto the drawings by Mr. Koros. As a result of that, the 34 trees, only 6 of them are located in what are areas that would be disturbed as a result of infrastructure. So we were very pleased with that, and we felt was, quite frankly, a very good outcome based on looking at the property. So gearing now towards your ordinance, we looked at that in comparison to what Mr. McQuestion compiled, and we looked at both the reasonable preservation along with what are we actually supposed to be doing, what's demanded of us to do on this site specifically. And so losing less than 20% of what the quality trees would be, but what are we supposed to do in exchange for that? And your ordinance, while not clear on saying what has to be preserved, is very clear on what you do have to do. And what that requires you to do is to plant within the right-of-way, unless the town or the city says otherwise, at least 1 tree every 40 lineal feet of frontage. And so doing the math throughout the project, that results in about 193 new trees being planted on the site. And unlike the ordinance talking about what's there today, the ordinance going forward is very specific about what you can plant, and oak trees are one of them. And it's gearing towards quality shade types of trees. And so we're replacing and planting up to 193 trees on the site, associated only with the right-of-way. Then, as you shift gears further on into what's required from your landscaping ordinance, our covenants, additional trees will be planted on the site. All said and done, when this site is completed, we'll have planted in excess of 400 new trees on the site. And in addition to the type of tree that you want on the site, it also says what size of tree. So that's all identified in the plat. That information that's provided for you. Our third-party engineering firm, environmental firm, identified these trees for us. We provided that report to staff, so we think we've made a very good faith effort here to protect and preserve what really should be protected and preserved on the site. The second component of the staff review, et cetera, was primarily driven around Old Porter Road, how that was going to be done, what was going to be the final product there. Mr. Koros did some original engineering on that site. That was all provided to your engineering staff. Mr. Sherry, I see, is not here tonight, but he's likewise had the opportunity to review this information. And there were really 2 parts to that. Mr. Monroe asked that if we would attend a Board of Works meeting to discuss principally the construction sequencing and how the Board of Works wants to handle that road. I personally reached out to Mr. Witten, our Attorney Witten, for the Board of Works, and he asked that we don't go to the Board of Works yet because we don't have an approved plan for the road at this point in time, but we agreed that when we know what has to be built, we would get together and discuss that construction sequencing and how that's actually going to occur. But the important part of that also is part 2 of that is what's the actual construction for that road going to include and how that's going to affect stormwater. And I'll let Mr. Koros answer that question or advise us about that.
Good evening. Yeah, so I've been in contact with both Mr. Sherry and Mr. Thompson on the stormwater side of things. And while initially we were trying to be as hands-off on Old Porter Road as possible, by the time we have gotten to our full developed stage and after comments with Mr. Thompson, it was determined that what we had initially planned on being a mill and replace from end of disturbance to end of disturbance really has become more of a total cut and fill project. So we went back to the board on that. Per our last meeting, it was advised that we pothole the road to verify utility locations, depths, materials, all of that good stuff. We had done that in late August, I believe. Subsequently followed up with Mr. Thompson and Mr. Sherry, and kind of came to the conclusion that we will need to do full depth replacement on this, and that we will need to adjust certain parts of that stormwater system to verify that we're not going to be causing any issues, specifically interference with existing utilities that are out there. We have a revised plan. That's what you guys see in front of you now. That has been re-reviewed by Mr. Thompson and Mr. Sherry. And at this point has been found satisfactory to my knowledge. So that complete redesign of Old Porter Road is now going to be pretty much a fill and replace, but will be like new from end of disturbance to end of disturbance.
So with those 2 points having been addressed, again, we think we've spent a tremendous amount of time, actually, we know we have, and worked with staff very hard to address the various issues that were raised by both the public and the staff members throughout these reviews. And we're prepared to move forward with this plan, anxious to get approval and anxious also to begin to fill a housing need in the city of Portage. So we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just one quick question for you. What page does it show the trees on?
That would be sheet C 1.4, if you're looking at the plan set. That is described in the notes section. And that delineates the amount of lineal frontages and the assumption that each lot will plant the appropriate amount of trees by ordinance. That does not take into consideration, of course, existing foliage and landscape that will be left on site. Not necessarily every site's going to be raised clear, so that'll be in addition to what happens to be left as made determinable by each individual lot owner when the building site plan comes before the planning department.
Yeah, there's a schedule on page C14, as Kevin indicated, identifying the trees, and hopefully you can see them on the site as well.
That completes your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Okay. At our last meeting, we had said that we would consider opening the public hearing one more time. And I think we should. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I motion to open the public hearing.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Monroe, could you call roll?
Tom Cherry,
Yes.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
John Harrison,
Yes.
Charles Thompson,
Yes.
Melissa Weidenbach,
Yes.
Paul Soselski,
Yes.
Denise Little.
Yes. So I now open the public hearing. I know we did receive the letters today. If you're repeating something that the person in front of you, just say, I agree with that. and not go over the same subjects over and over. And if you could ask specific questions so we can get specific answers, that will help too. So I have the first one go up, and then whoever wants to speak second, if you would be waiting on the wall, and that way we can keep things moving.
Denise, I only have to write on the head, is that appropriate for me to read?
Yes, I mean, if you have certain things you want answers to,
Probably follow within.
okay, okay, perfect.
Okay. Greetings to everyone, all here, and Plan Commission members. I have an addendum to the letter I wrote on August 7th with your presentation, and I'm going to read it through, and hopefully a question will pop up as I go through it. My name is Mtg. I live at 1982 Tanya Street, abutting the Woods property. To this ordinance, preservation of existing natural features and amenities, City Ordinance Section 66-370, we say yes to adopting codes that safeguard and preserve our green space and urban woods. Our city's comprehensive plan is 15 years old and long overdue for an update. We need to develop policy and ordinance that limit pollution and fragmentation of natural areas. Preserving the woods, or a portion thereof, with buffer zones and less density of homes would benefit our community. I really like hearing about adding so many trees. However, I feel that there should be a natural conservation area and not always developing cut and dry subdivisions. We say yes to enforcing existing city ordinances by administering consequences. Prior to this year, it happened in November 2021, several trees were cut at the property spoken of, and it was no light matter to cut down all these trees before primary plot approval. To my knowledge, there has been no restitution to date, and I question as to where that might come into this whole perspective of things. We say yes to having an input, a voice in the development of our community. When concerns were presented by petition and letters from neighbors submitted in 2021, where were our city officials in response or support? Our viewing of the plat proposal was at the first public hearing on July 10th, 2021. I feel like a community should have more of an input with its members and people of the community moving forward. There is a need for certainly housing. There's also a need for developing the sector of business and also the natural green space environment. As a bat habitat, which that particular property has, a nesting place for the great horned owl and other species of wildlife, the woods create its own ecosystem. It was surprising that when we contacted DNRs, their response was to the bats in the woods that the state of Indiana wouldn't do anything. Further research indicates that we as a state are 42nd out of 50 states as eco-friendly to the environment. We know better, we need to do better. Living in an industrial area and with looming climate change, small steps for preservation can have a big impact when we each do our part. You know, that particular area is a protection in many respects, and many of us have submitted letters before. And that particular grove or composite of good and bad, whatever it is that ecosystem. The drainage plan for the development is cutting trees and vegetation 15 feet from our property. How will this impact the trees and their roots on our property? In a publication, which I have copies of, from Purdue University by Lindsay Purcell, an urban forestry specialist, Construction in trees, guidelines for protection. Guidelines are given for trees, their roots, as well as disturbances of the soil to assure health of our trees. We're not only concerned about the health of the woods, we're concerned about the property that abuts that woods and how it's going to affect our trees on our property. On the west side of the woods, 25 feet is owned by the city, and 15 feet is being donated by the developer for a trail. This strip of land butts up to the backyards of resident properties on Driftwood. Is this not essentially a buffer zone? We requested a 15 to 30 feet buffer zone of trees and natural vegetation, preventing fragmentation and preserving some of the existing woods. Instead, 15 of the woods property butting to our property is to be clear-cut for a drainage plan. Recent developments at Boardwalk and Woodland and Portage have buffer zones with trees and vegetation between resident backyards. We vote to just say no to primary plot approval until our city's comprehensive plan is updated to better protect green space, enhance the business sector of our city, and ensure appropriate funding for city services continues to be available for our growing community. I thank you for your time, hopefully your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jermaine Marsh. I live at 1902 Tanya Street, which is the northeast corner of the property, or it abuts that. And my husband, David Marsh, is here too, and we all agree with everything that Annette said, and I just want to reinforce a few other things. Behind our property and into this property in question, are sand dunes, and they're 4 to 6 feet tall. They're not just these little 1 to 2 foot fingers they talk about. I sent pictures to all of you in August showing that they are as tall as our fence, 6 foot privacy fence. And my question is, we heard Annette say about the soil disturbance affecting our trees as well. They are planning to clear cut and level these dunes. Not only will the trees on those dunes be destroyed, but also the roots are going to be disturbed on our property, compromising our trees. So I'm very concerned about that. I'm just going off my notes before. I won't read them all because you all have this in a letter already. But a big thing that we have is that there has been no consequence for the ordinance violation already from cutting those 2 large swaths of trees from Old Porter Road all the way to 20, and not even a slap on the hand, nothing. And we think that they've already proven that they are not tree specialists. They finally called somebody in, but an arborist should have been consulted probably even before they bought the property. If they know nothing about trees, why are they building woods to develop? But they certainly should have been consulted before those swaths were cut, and even before they designed this subdivision. They're kind of like trying to put a Band-Aid over what they already did, and I think it's ugly. But this is another big reason to deny their approval, quite honestly. If the woods are to be developed at all, I don't think these are well-suited developers. All right, this property listed for decades at over $1 million. It was so lucky for someone to finally see it on the first day of selling for a quarter of that price. Or was it really that good a deal, putting a new subdivision into old infrastructure and established neighborhoods as many unique problems as they are finding out? They have to be worked through. Old Porter Road is the only way in and out of the surrounding neighborhoods. Losing it, especially for the length of time now they're talking about a total rebuild, and trying not to upset the status quo while they do it, that is going to have a huge impact on the entire north and east side of Portage. Minimizing the catastrophic effect of the road closure has to be carefully planned. It's essential. You can't wait till later. You can't just deal with it on the fly as if it's, a little convenience. So, have they made a plan for the emergency, fire, and police service in the meanwhile, while that's all torn up? They haven't even looked at it. And what about school bus service? Chrisman Elementary is just to the west of that area. The elementary, middle, and high school buses often follow each other on Old Porter Road on that stretch. What are they going to do now? There's nowhere to turn around. A plan has to be decided ahead of time for the safe transportation of our children, for the emergency service, for all of this. If it's not been addressed yet, I say that is a big reason to deny or at least postpone the primary plat approval. Yeah, we talked about the buffer zones, and I'm really worried about the protection of the adjacent properties. I don't know if whatever happened with the gas line study, too. So many neighbors said there is a big gas line back there. You hadn't done the preliminary 811 survey on that, and I haven't heard anything about it since. So is that still a thing? That needs to be looked into ahead of time, before approval. Okay. The other thing is, as Annette started to talk about the consequences, and I brought up before, the consequences of prior code violations, they have to be addressed. The denial of primary plat approval is warranted in light of all these things. And short of denial, they need to go back to the drawing board, add buffers, have a lower density lots. Those would be ideal, wonderful lots if they put upgraded housing on bigger lots with woods. What a benefit that would be compared to what you're just trying to put as many in a postage stamp size as possible. And with the comprehensive plan update for the city, yes, we are hoping that more woodlands in the city are protected. If our woods get in that would be wonderful. We would be dancing for joy. But even if not, somebody can come back later and come with a different plan, but they will do it better. They will do it in the proper procedure well. All right, I'm going to just address the commissioners again here. These developers already proved that they can't be trusted to do things right, chopping down those trees, repeatedly wasting Planning Commission and the residents' time pushing for plat approval without doing preliminary studies and plans, like the sketch plat or the closure of Old Porter Road, how they're going to manage that, and all these things. They just wanted to push this through. It's as if they're defiantly daring the Planning Commission and other officials to hold them accountable. Incredibly, like I said, there are no consequences to date for the destruction of those woods already, against city ordinance. Planning Commission members, you are here to ensure that what is developed in our city meets our minimal codes and procedures. If you do not exercise your authority in this case, I think you are failing the citizens of Portage. You're also sending a clear message that any developers can come, do whatever they want in Portage without oversight or consequence, and I don't really think that's what you want. But that's the message that will be sent. Therefore, hold these developers accountable. Have a restitution for the violation of the city ordinance. Deny the primary plat approval. Let's go back and figure this thing out better. Save the woods now, at least until the city comprehensive plan is updated. Okay, like I said, we hope the woods will be saved, but even if it's not, then someone can come and petition for development that can be done well, following good procedure, with the focus of benefiting Portage, not ruining it. And I know tomorrow is the election, and many of you are up for re-election. And I just want to put this little question. We can't ignore the fact that tomorrow's the election. But do you want the plat approval to be the last thing you do this term? It means the destruction of the few remaining woods on the north side of Portage for a dense subdivision. And I just want you to consider that before you approve tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Shonda Craig, and I live at 1895 Tanya Street. My property doesn't butt up against the woods. I'm on the opposite side of the street, but I still feel it's affecting me, partially due to the drainage issues. And at one point, the commission had stated that they were not going to allow Candy to any way be connected to this new development. I wanted to make sure that that is still in the works, that it's just going to be a cul-de-sac, no additional houses at the end of Candy, in the new plan. I'm hoping that's the scenario. And another question I have is, you were talking about saving 34 trees. My question for you that had the tree surveys done, these 34 trees, are they all in the property that's off of Tanya Street, Candy Avenue, and Driftwood, or are they in all three phases of the woods where you're going to be developing? It wasn't kind of specified where you
I'll
guys
share
only found
my
34.
copy with you.
I just find it hard to believe out of all that property, only 34 trees rendered to be salvaged, but I'm not whatever that tree person is. Arborist, okay. And then, like Annette totally went over everything, and so did Jermaine, but I feel that the existing landowners on Tanya, Candy, and Driftwood deserve to have the buffers on their property. It should not be allowed to be on the new property owners, that they should have a buffer, and the current homeowners around there have to lose their trees in this buffer zone. And that's all I have to say over this, and it's a sad situation, the way it started back in November of '21. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Roger Gagne. I live at 6459 Old Porter Road. I've got almost a full acre there. And since they cut the trees, I've got a golden retriever that's had to kill 3 groundhogs that have burrowed underneath my neighbor's house, under another garage, underneath my property and my barn. They also killed 3 pear trees this spring, ate the bark off of them. All right? And I've got 6 apple trees too. And the deer come in my yard to get something to eat and spend the night because I've got a 4-foot chain link fence. All right? They're out there just about every night. Their only protection. What I want to know is what, and I'm trying to keep this under control, but state of Indiana is a bunch of idiots because they didn't check anything. And I've been watching your comments, and some of them weren't very nice. Yes. Anyway,
Excuse me. No, excuse me. No comments direct to the commissioners.
fine. Then
Thank you.
change their attitude. Number one,
Made any comments?
I know. Okay, I'm not making any comments either. Now, further, about the state of Indiana and the Department of Natural Resources. I've got pictures of the 3 groundhogs that my 100-pound teddy bear killed, and I've got a golden retriever, all right? And they don't get much bigger than a teddy bear like that. And he's just about the most natural, well-behaved individual I've ever had, and I've only always had large dogs. Besides that, this spring, I've got a garden. I had to remove, which you don't know exist, the Massagura, and the spelling pronunciation's wrong, they get called swamp rattlers. They're about a foot long. And I've known about them for at least 20 years because the guy that lives right behind the Red Carpet Lounge was also an expediter at the 210 plate mill, and I worked on the hot strip. So he went back there and was pulling stumps out that Chrisman and Sam left after they cut everything to make his yard bigger, I think. And he saw these foot-long rattlesnakes. And he picked them up and put them in a bucket. He didn't know they were rattlers. Took them over to the national park, and they told him to go with this guy and take the damn things back where he got them. And he got them out of that plot right there, plus behind my house, because the one I had in my garden this spring come out of the south side of Old Porter, which is where my lot is. All right? So these guys don't know what they're talking about. Besides the groundhog invasion, besides the rattlesnake invasion, and half of you don't even know, we've got timber rattlers also. And cottonmouths, water moccasins. They don't know about that either. Now, where are you going to go with this? This whole thing's a joke, absolute joke, and I'm looking at it. You know, have you guys done your job? They haven't done theirs, and they're getting away with it. And they're obvious. They went in there and cut all the trees down, and then he says, well, the only ones important were the oak trees. Gee, we found a few of them. I can go out back of my lot and count them, and they're that big around. They already cut them down. They didn't care about what they cut down. You want to worry about environmental? I've got pictures of the groundhogs, all right? I didn't take a picture of the rattlesnake. The rattlesnake that was, that's found in this area, I don't know what's this thing's wrong, is the same one that has killed the little girls at the old deer forest on 12. That's why it closed 30 years ago. And now it's been opened. You're going to tell me the rattlesnakes aren't there anymore either? Go to the lakeshore and walk it. There's timber rattlers there. They're not black, they're this color. But they have the same diamonds on them. You know about them? They're just as deadly as these little bitty ones that I had in my garden this spring. And just to put a feather in your hat, I used to have a general contractor's license in that town. I quit that. They're yours.
Thank you.
Good thing we got an election coming.
Hello, my name's George Graves. I live at 1982 Tanya Street. I have just a couple of questions. Where they're going to cut the 15-foot for the drainage, I've got a big oak tree about 4 foot from where their property's gonna start. Now, when they cut that, it'll be on the west side of my oak tree, which will put the house on my roof in 2 or 3 years, maybe. What do we do? How do we address that? Because I'm not gonna cut the tree down. The other thing that I'm concerned about is I didn't hear anything about a black walnut tree that is on the property. I haven't heard anything about what's gonna happen in 4 or 5 years after they sell their lots and move, if they're gonna have any responsibility or they just gonna leave. And the other thing is, looking at the overview of Portage, how many more pieces of property are there with trees on it that aren't a park or something like that? I see a lot of farmland. It'd be a lot easier to put a subdivision on, but they bought the property and it's theirs, and we all know what's gonna come, and I hope they do it right. But I've lived on the property with my wife 21 years, and I just want to make sure that we're not going to get a big ugly bucket of something in 2 or 3 years, that they'll be responsible for anything that happens on that property for a reasonable period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak?
Should I put my name down? Yes, please. My name's David Marsh. 1902 Tanya. Jermaine's my wife. A couple things to add. I've lived in Portage for roughly 43 years. And when I came here, there were a lot of places with woods. Woodland Park, beautiful park. Really old, really large oak trees there, a lot of history. I've enjoyed my backyard. In fact, I've left the very back of my property very undeveloped because I enjoy the deer coming in. I enjoy looking out at the woods and not being able to see far and know there's animals out there, and listen to the birds. There's so many different kinds of birds and different times of the day. So I was really never much of a nature lover, but I am more so now as I get older and appreciate things. So there's an ecosystem there. There's a lot of animals, a lot of different things that I see, and I don't spend a lot of time there. So I know there's trees that people recognize as valuable, oak trees, maybe a black walnut. But every tree out there, for the most part, they're 40, 50 feet tall, maybe bigger. Some are very old. And it doesn't make a difference to the wildlife that live there, whether it's a honey locust or an oak tree. It's valuable to them. The forest cools the air. It's cooler out there. It quiets things. It makes oxygen. Yet, on our whole planet, there seems to be a war against trees and forests. So we have this piece of property that was for sale for well over $1 million for quite a while, because I would look it up once in a while. I wonder if I could ever afford to buy that, put my house in the middle of it and just enjoy some quiet. And it was always well over $1 million. I understand that this property went for maybe around $300,000. I don't know the exact numbers, but it went for a lot less than that. So the property per square acre, per square foot, the cost to whoever owns it or develops it is much less than standard fare. So they got a bargain on this property. And to top that off, it seems that they want to cram as many houses onto it as possible to make the most bucks. That's kind of how it sounds to me. And the tone that I was told that people found when they approached the people that were sawing trees down was pretty much just, mind your own business, we'll do whatever we want, shut up and go away. seemed pretty ugly. I wasn't there, I didn't experience this, but I know these people and I believe them. I was not here at the very beginning of the meeting. Whatever was said, I didn't hear that. But they're right. There have been some breaches in protocol. Things were taken for granted. Maybe that's how things are done. If this was a pasture, believe me, I don't think people would be upset like they are here. This is not a pasture. This is a valuable resource, and I don't think we're recognizing it as it is. I would like to see, for close to the amount of money they spent per square foot, for them to offer us a chance to buy, let's say, a 50-foot perimeter around this that won't be drained, that'll be left alone. A buffer, a real buffer, a quiet buffer. I would like to see that. I would give them money. Whatever they paid per square foot for that, I'll give them that, make a couple bucks on top of it. I don't think that's what they want, but that might be a recourse that would be amenable. At any rate, I know that we have an old sewer system here. We do have occasional sewer backups. I know the sanitary company or the people come out and they run things through there to unplug stuff, and that's just with Candy and Tanya on this line. Now, I don't remember how many houses they plan to put in there, but it's quite a few, and they're all going to go into the same branch that runs along Candy because they all go west toward the sanitary district. So we're going to be experiencing more use on that as well as other utilities. So that's a worry. The road, they want to have 2 roads come out on Old Porter Road from the north. And I don't know what they have coming in on the south, maybe the same number of streets. So whatever that's going to do to Old Porter Road, and that's been just a 2-lane road, but it's critical. People go through there. Right now, it's just trees. There's no traffic. Buses can get through, cars can get through. Put all this stuff in there, it's going to slow down things, it's going to slow down emergency vehicles, etc. So we were shocked to see it. We didn't know it was up for sale at all because it just was gone like that. Amazing luck for somebody. Just happened to catch it at the right time. And the price, unbelievable. Had we known that price was existent, I think that I know I would have tried to get some people together and buy that property and leave it more or less as is. But at any rate, they own the property. But I urge you guys to try to manage our property and what's left of the city and what's left of our trees. Wildlife is there. I mean, it's just, that's what makes the homes in our area valuable, because it's nice. When you go to places where it's all packed together, it's really not nice. It's just there. So the charm that Portage had when I moved here is kind of going away because we're getting more like a city crowded together. Is that what we want? Other towns seem to have maybe better restrictions than we have on the books now. But maybe there's studies that we should do before we continue to just go hog wild and allow things to go, in my mind, rather foolishly. So just hope that you guys see it my way, basically. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diana Salbasi. I live at 1918 Tanya Street. I've lived there for 44 years. And this is the day that I've always feared. I think you all received a copy of some research that I had done on trees. Just as a side note, and I don't want to keep you too long because I think everyone has pretty much covered all the things that we're concerned about. I was actually at an Episcopal convention this past weekend. I've been an Episcopalian all my life, and I had no idea that the Episcopal Church, both nationally and internationally, were so concerned with climate change, to the extent that they gave every Episcopal church in northern Indiana a tree. And I don't mean a little tree. The tree was probably 5 or 6 feet tall. They are concerned about climate change, which we all should be. I think the only thing that really crushed me was when the day that I found out that someone had bulldozed through the woods. I couldn't believe that someone would just literally bulldoze through those woods without letting any of us know what was going on. We really didn't know what was going on. And I did speak to the gentleman who happened to be at the end of the street and asked him why he was destroying our woods. He promised me that he would leave at least 120 feet of our property. I'm not sure that that's really going to happen, but I do know that, I have deer that come into my yard, and it's such a beautiful sight. What's going to happen to the deer and all the wildlife if those trees, I think even now, with just having those 2 or 3 sections, because they also bulldozed south of Old Porter, the animals don't know where to go. And if we keep destroying our woods, what's going to happen to our wildlife? There are many places in Portage that are flat. Use those places to build a housing development. But please leave our trees and our wildlife alone. Thank you for listening.
Hello. My name is Austin Bonta, 2797 Woodward Street. Most of you guys know me as a former Plan Commission member. It's, as always, great to see you guys. I don't want to speak too long because so much of what I could say has already been said. I share the concerns expressed by so many people that have come up here today on issues like drainage, issues like the work on Old Porter Road, issues like the tree and the animal displacement and how that's all going to get taken care of. I understand the concern. I just wanted to come up here and say a couple things regarding the process and where it can go. First off, regarding facial expressions, I'm pretty sure Melissa was looking at me. So I just want to clear that up. Thank you. Sorry, I can't say too much about you guys individually. I'm pretty sure I was the guy, and there was a reason for the eye contact. Sorry. When it comes to how this stuff all works, when it comes to, and even hearing some of the comments said today, sincere comments from people about how this is perceived to work, it's important for people to realize that the state of Indiana does put a lot of rules on how local governments are allowed to operate, and in particular, what you guys can and can't do. I get that, and I encourage you guys to find a way to express and educate the public on what your role is under the law and what you can do and where your limits are. That said, I encourage you guys to work and make sure that you do your due diligence to make sure that you've got the ability to see that if this is going to happen, it's going to be done right. This is the sort of thing that we just can't afford to do badly, and we have too many examples of that in the city of Portage. One thing that I've heard over and over again, and I think that it's being said around the city now, is the importance of Portage having a current comprehensive plan. I could go on and on, but all I will say is it's going to take the city working on that, and I really think it's time for the Plan Commission to be able to lead that planning. At this point, developers know the Portage rules. At this point, the people who work for the city know the Portage rules, and they're able to get a lot done by knowing those rules. But the public needs to be as informed as the developers, and it's time for them to be able to have a say in the direction the city is going, whether that's tree cover, whether that's density, whether that's traffic. I encourage you guys as the Plan Commission to, at some point, tonight if you'd like, but whenever you'd like, please vote to call on the city to update the comprehensive plan for the first time in 14.9 years, 15 by January. Let's bring the people in. Let's do some planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner?
Hello, my name's Haley Morris. This is my husband and our baby. We live on Old Porter. Our property actually backs up right to the subdivision that's going to be built. We're on 6575. We just moved in July. We chose that area to raise a family and, excuse me. We were not made aware of this subdivision going up until we had already moved in. And we chose this area because of the woods. We moved from Valparaiso to Portage for this property, and I feel that our trees and our nature are at risk, seeing this neighborhood and the layout and everything that they have proposed. And we are, all three of us, very against this neighborhood going in, so I would like you to please reconsider, and thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Richard Dominguez. I live on Candy. It's the last house on the right on Candy, next to the woods. I got 3 questions. One is about the cul-de-sac that's supposed to be put in at the end of this subdivision. The last meeting we were here at, it was said that that was going to be no throughway Candy into that subdivision, and it was going to be no houses on the outskirts of that cul-de-sac. Am I correct? And is that still in act? The second one is, does the National Lake Shore have any jurisdiction over all of this? None at all whatsoever since we've had the park, since it's all been national. I was hoping it would. I got one more thing to say. It's been brought up about when they went in there first, cut the woods down and everything without anybody knowing about it. And I know it's been brought up a couple of times, but they should be penalized for this. I had a chance to talk to the gentleman that was in there doing all of this, in charge of it. And I asked him, what's he doing? And he said, well, it's our land. And I said, well, we didn't know nothing about it. He said, well, you should have bought it and this wouldn't be happening. And that seems to be the type of people we're dealing with as of yet. And I got one more. I've been hearing stuff going around on this deal that was worked out. And stop me if I'm wrong. The way this deal was brokered, I've been hearing that there was a commissioner that had something to do with this. I don't know if it's true. I'm not going to bring any names out. But I also heard he has something to do with this company. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it's up to you people to find out. Because if he did, he shouldn't have been doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I forgot to mention something. Can I say something else?
I'll allow it.
Thank you. Sorry. I understand that there's a plan on the east side of this to have a clearing for a drainage. And I've lived there, like I say, 43 years. I've never seen water coming out of the woods toward my home. I don't see that. It's still a sandy area. And I think the soil, whatever it is mostly sand, and it seems to drain very well. So the drainage thing, I'm not sure if that's to surface water or is that a buried storm sewer? I have no idea what that's about. I don't even know. I wonder if it's actually needed. The thing with the drainage thing is you're destroying whatever plants or trees or anything else that's there. You're clearing it out to possibly make a gulch or lay pipe. But like I say, I've never seen any water coming out of the woods toward my home. And even in the backyard, I mean, it's sandy, it absorbs the water. So that's another thing. I just wondered if that's necessary Or what, is that for the sanitary sewer? But that would be better served in the middle of the subdivision versus on the perimeter. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
May I?
Sir, spoken one time.
I know. But I didn't mention the stormwater drainage that we lack on Old Porter Road. My neighbor's house
Okay,
gets
we're gonna,
flooded.
that's part of the questions that we're gonna answer.
No, they weren't. They were asked.
Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? If not, I close the public hearing. And I saw you taking notes, I have notes, so we'll go through everything one at a time.
Okay, thank you. I guess, going back, the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance has been mentioned. I'm sorry. Yeah. This property is zoned for the uses that we're proposing for the property. It's anticipated by the comprehensive plan. The plan that's before you today exceeds what the requirements are for the zoning ordinance. The lots range in size from 8,800 square feet to 2,400 square feet. The minimum lot size in this zoning jurisdiction is 8,400 square feet. I believe it was just answered that Candy Avenue is not going to be extended at all. And again, the property, it was a former sand mine, now proposed for residential use and complies only 2.3 units per acre is what's engineered for the site. With respect to stormwater and sanitary, all of those items are engineering items that Mr. Kuros with McMahon has been working with your engineering staff on those particular items. And I can assure you that those have not, there's really been no stone unturned on those. This has taken several months of review to get through those various items. Kevin, why don't you address the stormwater briefly, what you've accommodated there?
As I mentioned before, we've been in touch with both Mr. Sherry and Mr. Thompson. Mr. Sherry from the stormwater collection point of view, and Mr. Thompson from the overall subdivision engineering point of view on this. And Mr. Ferngren is absolutely correct. We've been in very close contact with both of these entities, as well as Mr. Commenda from the utility department, on how we are utilizing the existing utilities that are there and how we are coexisting with the proposed utilities that we plan on. Rear yard drainages are necessary, as we know from development. Stormwater runoff becomes greater through the development. Stormwater is naturally going to flow more, so those drains are required. We have a very substantial pond on the directly southern portion of Old Porter Road that will handle all of this and release water at a slower rate than at which it leaves properties now. This is just standard engineering procedure and follows your ordinance to a T. Mr. Thompson has caught some things that I left unturned, and we work together to make sure that we handle these things appropriately. Re-engineering has been done on the stormwater side with Mr. Sherry, so that we prove that our drainage calculations are adequate, our pipe sizing is adequate. There is no other option that is foreseeable by either the reviewing engineering agencies or us to come up with any sort of additional solution. We believe we achieve the spirit of what you guys are looking through for the ordinance on what this property is zoned and meant for.
And then finally, I'd like to add that it's not unusual to address the actual construction of infrastructure when the time comes to do that sort of thing. I live in a neighborhood just like everybody else, massive undertaking on the road that I live in, and there was traffic signaling, people of staff members out there working on site all day long. So at the appropriate time, that construction, how that's going to be undertaken, how that affects emergency responders, how that affects school buses, all of those things will be carefully taken into consideration and reviewed by the Board of Works, and we're happy to meet with them. on that. So again, this plan complies with the comprehensive plan. We've worked very hard to present what you have before you. We're not seeking any variances or waivers to your design standards, and we're happy with this outcome. I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
I did also forget to mention too, a gentleman asked about drainage on Old Porter Road. As Chip and I have worked on this, Old Porter Road is being, as you know, is currently extremely flat with hardly any movement at all. If you've visited the site, the project plans will include new centerline design that will actually give the road some high and low points, which will help clarify water to the drainage basins, thank you, appropriately. So that's the answer to that question. I forgot that, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, before I open to questions from the board, for the schools in emergency, I know, being in the DRC meeting, that all those points were noted by staff. So I do know that they do have a plan for that. Let's see. Question about the sand dunes?
Yes, you, go ahead and answer that, yeah. Sorry, another one I forgot to answer. As you guys may or may not know, I'm sure everybody is well aware by now that this site was utilized by the steel industry for mining sand for their use. There used to be old railroad track beds on the bed that conveyed that sand to and from. The dunes aren't dunes in the sense of naturally occurring sand dunes. They are created by the excavation from the mining process that was done on this property. And the individual that mentioned their size is correct. Some of them are somewhat substantial, and we've made accounts for those moving the dirt and drainage wise.
Okay. Is the gas line shown?
There is no gas line to our knowledge. We've worked very closely with Indiana 811 Underground Utilities on this. We've had not only at least 2 markouts on the property, but a third for the potholing that was done on the property. In our research of the property, both from current and old plats, there's no knowledge of a gas main that is on this property. There is, and maybe this is where a confusion is, there is a force main on the property, a sanitary force main coming from the development south of the railroad tracks on Monument Avenue there. I'm
What-
sorry?
What page on your plans is this shown
There
on?
you could probably refer to C 2.4. C 2.4 shows where the approximate location is of the force main that feeds the sanitary portion of that development. It goes through this property and dumps into the manhole on Old Porter Road along the west side, correct? That is a sanitary force main, not a gas. We are not, there's not exactly sure records of where that force main traverses through that property. We have a pretty close identification of where it enters the property across the railroad tracks onto our side. That would still have to be, there's notes for call out for potholing. We've worked with Dan Commenda on that to make sure that we recover that line and tie it appropriately into our system.
Okay, and the only question, because I'm sure I saw a gas pole.
There's a fiber optic pole out there. Sometimes fiber optic poles look very similar to gas. There's 2 fiber optic lines that run on the north and the south side. 2 lines, one's on the north, one's on the south. The tall orangish markers that are out there, there is a gas line out there as well that runs along the road, but I believe those were actually fiber optic markers.
Okay, no, this was a gas line.
Yeah. So there is gas line that runs east-west on the north side of the road, I believe. But again, that's been taken into account in our design drainage. In fact, we've, with Chip's help, we've kind of adjusted our location on how we utilize the pond because of the potholing that was done for that line.
Let's see. And then the other question is that you had agreed to putting in a cul-de-sac at Candy, and it's not on the plans.
Correct, yeah, that's gone through a couple different iterations. When we first met the city on a sketch plan back in 2020, I believe, there were initial plans, and that was what we were told was desirable for the utilities. So we went forward with that design to provide that based on their wants. It came back that they did not want it, so then we removed that from the plan set.
But we do want the cul-de-sac. We told you last meeting we wanted the cul-de-sac.
We've been constantly told that we do not want the cul-de-sac.
No,
We're-
it's in the minutes, and we did tell you we want the cul-de-sac.
Did we? I mean, we're happy to provide what the city wants.
We were, at any rate, if the cul-de-sac is desired, that can be installed.
No lots off of it.
But there's no lot, there are no.
No lots,
Correct.
Right.
but the
Correct.
cul-de-sac at the end of Candy
Correct,
Street.
the turnaround, we're
Correct.
saying, correct. Okay, I'm sorry.
fire
I thought you meant
trucks.
a lengthened cul-de-sac.
Hold on, everybody needs to quit talking at once, including the crowd and the petitioners, one at a time, so we actually know what's happening.
We would install the turnaround and provide for that as you've asked for. There won't be any lots off of that, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
A 60-foot
Yes.
turnaround on that. Okay, you are correct. We do not show that in our plans. We can add that,
But there will be no lots.
but there will be no lots off of it.
And then also, I think the final question is that you would ask for no variances down the road after today.
We have, the plans before you have no variances or design waivers.
I know, but we've had people come back and said, no, we don't need any variances, and then they come back and we,
We are not asking for any variances
at any time.
at any time.
I will now open to questions from the commission. Chip, you want to give us a little bit of a detail on what you've gone through so that we can understand your end of the project?
Sure. As an engineering representative for the Plan Commission, we review the drainage, or the overall drainage and road, and make sure that it meets city standards. Upon review of this and the proposed utilities that were going to be installed on Old Porter Road, we suggested or required that Old Porter be constructed to current city standards. That is for the best for the citizens of Portage. So we worked with the petitioner and the petitioner's engineer to address that issue. Also, there was a few unknown utilities that we requested or required them to pothole to make sure that they didn't have surprises during construction. So that their engineer designed around those items that could potentially cause issues down the road. So at this time, they've addressed all the comments that we've noted.
Thank you. Questions?
I'm Paul Sosolsky. I'm new to this, so I'm just dropping in. You mentioned that there's going to be a pond on the property, and I didn't see the location. Is that the triangular lot in the southeast portion?
Yes. Correct, yeah, directly south of Old Porter Road.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a way that we can enforce or promise that they won't come back asking for a variance, put it in?
We can make
writing?
that part of the motion.
Okay.
I was told one time that we could when somebody came back to ask for a variance.
At BZA, but this isn't BZA, this is Plan Commission.
Right.
So they have the right, under the statute, to request relief and follow the process. I don't believe you can bind them to asking for no variances at Plan Commission. At BZA, in a part of the approval process of giving them a variance, which is already for conditions beyond what the code allows, you can install additional procedures or additional reasonable conditions, which would allow you at that point to state no additional variances. But at this point in time, I don't believe the Plan Commission has the statutory right, because frankly, I think most plan commissions would have invoked that a long time ago on all of their primary plats.
Okay,
It comes down to a due process issue.
and my mistake, but it would just make residents feel better about them if they're not looking to do that, so. I'm sorry about that. Other questions?
But again, just to clear that point, if they were to come ask for a variance, we have to follow all the surrounding property owner notification, come back here for not only a public meeting, but a public hearing, and discuss whatever that exact variance request would be, along again with public comment. It's not as if a variance can just be issued from a department without public comment.
I'd just like to follow up on the pond question. Who's going to maintain the pond once the subdivision's built? I wear another hat as the park board president, and we've been given ponds to maintain that we never determined. It's been pseudo-determined as park property that it really isn't. So we just want to make sure that, I want to make sure that someone's going to maintain these after you're in or after you're gone.
Yep. Thank you. As part of this process, it was instructed to us that the homeowners association would be established to own and maintain that land. However, the city, Mr. Monroe expressed concerns, and I heard those here the first meeting that we were at as well. What powers does the city, what can we give the city to protect that? And within the plat and the covenants, there's language that says while the POA has the authority to and must maintain these things, it does grant the city the right to do those things should it become necessary and charge the owners of the land in this subdivision if there was any costs incurred for that. So the POA primarily, if they do not do it, the city has the right to do that and charge these landowners, not the citizens of Portage at large.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
In reading over this, the study that was done on the trees, was there anything, because I didn't see anything in there, was there anything mentioned about the condition of the trees, the health of the trees? Because I see a lot of times they build in, when they try to save trees, later on down the line, they find out they're rotting on the inside, they're in poor condition. Has there been anything noted as far as the condition of the, 34 trees you marked out to save? What is the condition of them?
These trees, according to Mr. McQuestion, these 34 trees appeared to be ones that were in good shape to be taken care of. He did comment that in wandering around and looking at the rest of the site and taking measurements and doing all of those things, the rest of the trees, while they're there, they're not native types of species, they're not good quality hardwoods, and they're not ones that he identified as he would think would be worth keeping. But specifically related to these 34 are these are the trees he said he would keep if he could do that.
Any more questions? May I have a motion?
I think with the lateness of the information we received, I believe some of the information we didn't get until Friday afternoon. Is that right, AJ?
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion that we postpone this until our December 4th Plan Commission meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Monroe, could you call roll?
Tom Cherry,
Yes.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
John Harrison,
Yes.
Charles Thompson,
Yes.
Melissa Weidenbach,
Yes.
Paul Siselsky. Denise Little.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. I'll take it out in the hallway and do that first. Please take it home.
Mr. Monroe, could you call our next order of business?
Yes, the new item is M0323, James W. Carlson Living Trust, care of James W. and Jane Lee Carlson, requesting annexation recommendation to the City Council of property located at the northeast corner of 500 West Airport Road and 700 North.
Good evening.
This is on, okay. I'll get a little closer to it. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present tonight to the Plan Commission. We understand you have a difficult job in many of these situations, but we do appreciate your service to the community, of which my client wants to add to. It finds the city a dynamic place, and many developers are finding this a dynamic city in today's development of Northwest Indiana. I represent Providence Real Estate Development. As part of this, seeking to develop a portion in the city of Portage, my client has filed an annexation petition. It's seeking to annex 38 acres to the city. But what it has right now, it has 120 approximate acres under contract with the Carlson family. So 78 acres, 78 to 80 acres are already in the city. And perhaps at this time, I'll show you this board. This section on top here, the north section, is the 78 to 80 acres. That's already in the city. The portion in blue is the portion my client seeks to annex. And it has all 120 acres under contract with the Carlson family. So as part of this, we obviously want to bring in the southern section to the city of Portage. So that annexation has commenced. The public hearing has occurred at the city council. And pursuant to your ordinance, which is section 90-1.14, we're here tonight to seek a recommendation from the Plan Commission for the zoning on the portion that we're trying to bring into the city. With me this evening is Doug Ians from Providence Real Estate Development and John Carroll from Providence Real Estate Development, who are working with the landowner to come up with a plan for this property. So as we indicated, my client would like to bring the southern portion in with the 80 to the north. And my client is in the early stages of developing a plan for the property. And what I can show you on that board right now is the north section, which is already in the city, that shows multiple different types of housing. And then the southern portion, approximately 30 acres, that we're seeking your favorable recommendation on this evening. So with that, we're seeking a favorable recommendation for R2 zoning. We believe that that type of zoning would assist us in coming up with the overall plan for all 120 acres. We believe that would blend the appropriate densities, and we would like to remind, you're making a recommendation this evening, but when we hopefully receive the City Council's annexation, we will be back in front of this Plan Commission with an overall plan for the entire 120 acres. And with that, I think Doug Ians would like to, now at this point, address the Plan Commission and tell you a little bit of what he does as the land development manager at Providence, and tell you a little bit about their plans for this property.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity again to be here tonight. As Mr. Bauer stated, I am Doug Ians with Providence Real Estate. I pretty much oversee all of our land operations, from acquiring new properties to seeing them through all their entitlements and approvals, on through the physical development of getting the streets and utilities into the property. Greg did a great job laying out, you know, the property itself, the section that's already in the town of, or the city of Portage, rather. I had brought my computer to plug in with a presentation I have here. Would everyone like a hard copy of that? I brought some hard copies just in case. You got one?
No, I don't have
So the first three exhibits in that package I just handed out is pretty much the plans that Mr. Bauer previously showed. And I guess I'll skip to the land plan that has all the colored lot sizes on it. Obviously, the first step is to get through this annexation step. If that doesn't happen for any reason, this whole plan is kind of out the window. But upon annexation, we will closely start working with Mr. Monroe and his staff on, you know, the actual layout, the product types that we intend to build, and the appropriate zoning to request to make all that come together and work appropriately. This plan has a mix of traditional 80-foot wide single-family lots, some narrow cottage-type lots of 65 feet, I believe, and then some paired villa lots that would total, the typical lot would be 95 foot wide. On the 120 acres, the overall density on this comes out to only 2.69. We are planning to have, as you can see, some green space with some passive walking paths, trying to really create a neighborhood and an active lifestyle and activities that people can do from within their neighborhood. And then the back half of that, this package is just a palette of our standard homes. the single-family, the cottages, and the paired villas, and the various levels of elevations that go with each home. If anyone would like, I could walk through them each and every one of them, but I don't know that we're here to talk too much about houses and elevations. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Mr. Bauer and/or the commission.
Well, I know it's been a long evening, but I would like to close with this comment for the Plan Commission. I do have an overhead view from the GIS. And I know this was touched upon earlier because I've been involved in these discussions about trees and everything. This is entirely a farm field out there. From all those concerns that were stated tonight, this is prime land for development. So we appreciate your thoughts on it. And then we'd like to hopefully get a recommendation to move forward to send to the City Council for their next meeting. Thank you.
So you're asking for all R2?
For the 38 acres, yes. We're going to have to come back anyway.
I know, but what you're planning to do with the whole development makes a difference about the annexation.
Correct.
What is the zoning to the north part of your property?
It's,
I believe
it's
it's R1.
Yeah, it's R1.
With paired patios?
We're going to
Right.
be back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say the silent part out loud. They're gonna want a PD at some point, but they can't do a PD on a rezone. Period. I mean, on an annexation, our system doesn't work to allow it, so. They're looking for a zoning to have a place card so that they can then finish their development. If they get to the annexation, then they'll be back before you with their requests.
You will have complete discretion at that point. And from our standpoint, a PD allows you to put in whatever you want in the zoning. We deal with each other and we come up with an ordinance, but
We have a lot of experience with PUDs.
Okay.
So some of your lots would be 65 feet wide?
Yes, that's correct. Right now.
And in your paired villas, what's your main floor square footage?
On a two-story, how big is the first floor?
You have a ranch.
Yeah, there's a ranch and a two-story. The ranches range 1,200 to almost 1,700 square feet.
And what about the two-story?
1,400 to 1,700
The main floor?
total.
No. What's the square footage on the main floor?
I don't know off the top of my head. Well, I will say this, it will meet your ordinance.
Our main floor ordinance is 800 square feet.
Well, that should be, I mean, we
Yeah.
have to take into, yeah.
800.
Not including living space, not including garage.
Right.
Yeah.
But we have a main floor square footage of 800 square feet. And from your rendering, I don't think,
I mean, certainly as we go forward, that's something we're going to have to take a look at, and make sure everything's compliant, or it's a part of our request. Yeah.
Which one are you referring to?
That's a two-story is what the,
Yeah, the two-story. Yeah, that's a two-story, which again, if it's in I would suggest to you that, again, without getting, I was not aware of that specific requirement, but given the square footage of our two-story paired villas, I would say 800 square foot on the first floor is workable for us.
If you're planning on going after a PUD for this, why aren't you requesting an R1 to be the same zoning as the rest of the parcel?
that's certainly up for the Plan Commission looked at all of our different types of housing that we want to do on the parcel, that R2 would fit better overall with balancing all the different products out on the parcel. That balancing of the products is based on the demand, quite frankly, in society. Paired villas are for 55 and over for the most part. And then the smaller homes, believe it or not, are designed a lot of times for the same market area, and then the larger single families. So we were trying to balance all the overall zoning, but that's certainly up for the Planning Commission to make a determination and forward on to the City Council. We have to come back no matter what.
I guess from our standpoint, at the end of the day, if it's, we wanted to show you, even though most of the property is already annexed, okay, and this isn't two parcels, this is all one parcel. We wanted to share with you our thoughts for the mixed-use development, where we're heading with it, okay? We have to come back and discuss the zoning in the future anyway, but given that it's a mixed use and there are different lot sizes, et cetera, we were suggesting R2, that this come in at R2. If the commission feels that would be more appropriate to bring it in R1 and deal with it all in the future, we don't have a problem with that. We're just trying to be very clear, because we don't want to be in a situation where, we're not representing to you as best we can today, even though it's very early in the process, as to what our intentions are with the property and where we're going with it. So from our standpoint, we are looking for some direction from the commission as to what you feel would be appropriate to bring it in at, knowing what our future plans are at this point.
I've got a question for staff. Are we to, I was under the impression that we were to either give a favorable or unfavorable recommendation and not address zoning?
No.
Okay.
We're here to give a recommendation on zoning and only zoning. We're not here to make a recommendation on whether or not the annexation is in the best interest of the city of Portage.
Okay, gotcha.
Because they've already had their hearing with the council.
They've started the process. I believe this application was accepted, and Counselor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the annexation request was accepted by the council in October. The next step of the process is to send it to the Plan Commission for a recommendation, and I believe this matter will be taken up once again at the city council level.
Correct.
Did everybody understand that?
So all the city council's looking tonight is the recommendation for plan that if the council decides to annex this portion, what your non-binding recommendation would be for the council to utilize as zoning, the original zoning determination.
Mr. Monroe, have you reviewed this with the comprehensive plan, or do you have any what zoning is recommended for this parcel?
I don't have a recommendation regarding the zoning of the property. This is the first, well, I know I've had conversations with these gentlemen in the past, but I was not aware that this packet of information was provided during when the annexation agreement was given to the Common Council. Is that correct?
When we went for the public hearing, it was available, and we've met with the city previously, and this was shown to the city before we were given the green light to file for annexation. This exact plan was handed to the city administration. Now, there was no vote taken. I don't want to mislead you. Those papers were distributed and handed out, and they said proceed with the annexation process, and Mr. Monroe was spot on. We filed the petition, we held the public hearing, and we have to go back to the city council for a final determination on the annexation. Mr. McClure spot on too on the recommendation from the Plan Commission, according to the ordinance, section 90-1.14.
So if I could then add, the property to the north, the portion of this property that's within the city of Portage, which is this property right here. And you'll see how that references the illustration provided by the petitioner. There's a thick dashed line that runs east to west across this property. So what's referenced north of that dashed line is this parcel here, 301-002. And the property south of that dashed line is included in this property, 351-001. That small piece there, this small piece here, and this larger piece, number 376-001. I believe the request of an R2 zoning likely has something to do with how the proposed area in that, or the way the petitioner is showing that area, that rendered color, that salmon color, let's say, is being proposed in a manner that would be consistent with R2 zoning in the city of Portage. However, with that said, the property to the north is zoned R1. I don't believe, understanding that in all likelihood, the petitioner will be back before the Plan Commission with a plan development. Whether or not you send a recommendation for R1 or R2, I don't know if it's material. These gentlemen have made a clear indication that they would be back to the Plan Commission, the City Council, for a change of zoning for a PD overlay in an R district, whether R1 or R2. Based on our ordinance for a PD, as the gentleman referenced, it appears that the uses would be, what's conceptually shown here as a development plan would meet the requirements or the use requirements of a PD overlay. The only thing I would add to that is historically, because it's been a minute since we've spoken about this, guys, this did take into account the previously discussed development to the north. Here, and this was on the Hatala property here, and I believe that it was this and this one that were also included in that petition previously, not that one. So this was previously, you had seen this as Plan Commission for that concept plan that was provided to you some time ago. So when I was speaking with these gentlemen and we were talking about what could happen as we continued south in the community, we were using that as a guidepost to development as it made its way south of the intersection of US Highway 6 and Airport Road.
Is there a chance that that PUD doesn't go through? So then we would have a zone of R2 platted on an island on the outside of an R1 district?
That could be an effect of a decision to make a recommendation for R2 versus R1. You are correct.
May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to make a annexation recommendation of R1 to City Council.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Monroe, could you call roll?
Tom Cherry,
Yes.
Sam LeBoy,
Yes.
John Harrison,
Yes.
Charles Thompson,
Yes.
Melissa Weidenbach,
Yes.
Paul Soselski,
Yes.
Denise Little.
Yes.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the time.
Any old business? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.